Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Talk Spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. Thank you for joining me wherever you are joining me. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, make sure you like, subscribe. We are working towards 3,000 subscriptions, 3,000 subs. We appreciate everybody that is trying to make this happen. 3,000 by May. That is the goal. One of the things that I was thinking about as I watched the playoffs unfold is this idea behind these players who have not played possibly coming back to play. If anyone knows, like the Nets have been going at this thing without their full squad intact. They traded away James Harden. And in return, they essentially right now they made a trade for James Harden to get Seth Curry. That's not a fair trade. And I could argue that even if you add in Ben Simmons, from a player standpoint, Philadelphia still wins this trade. James Harden's just a better player than both of those guys combined. And mostly because if you have both of those guys, you can't play both of those guys together because you're like deficient. So it's almost as if one has to be on the court, or if they do play together, it can't be for a prolonged period of time. Like Ben Simmons can't be on the court and Seth Curry be on the court for 25, 30, 40 minutes a game because there's deficiencies in their game. But beyond that, there's the talk about Ben Simmons coming back. There's the talk about Zion Williams coming back. And just so you know how I thought about both players in respects to the NBA, I've never been sold on Ben Simmons. Anybody who knows, anybody that wants to go back and look and say, oh, well, he's just saying this in hindsight. No. I thought he had issues from the moment I watched him play at LSU. I knew he had issues when he missed an entire rookie season over like a 6-week injury, a 4 to 6 week injury. I knew that he had issues when he seemed to be more enamored with being a star than actually playing like one. I've always known this. At LSU, this man, when one marquee player can elevate an entire team to the NCAA tournament, this man had zero ability to elevate a team. Why? Because he never cared enough. He never cared enough. Now, if we just want to talk about the raw athletic ability of Ben Simmons, then there's no debate. He's one of the best pure size, athleticism combo guys that we have in the NBA. There's LeBron, size, athleticism. There's Giannis, size, athleticism. There's Ben Simmons. And there's the next guy that we're talking about, which is Zion Williamson. And Zion, for those who don't know, I said at best, he's Charles Barkley. At worst, he's Draymond with athleticism. Like at best, he's Charles Barkley 2.0. At worst, he's Draymond with athleticism. So I don't know what's going on with Zion. Zion never struck me as a person who didn't like to play the game. But what's gone on with Zion since he's gotten to the NBA, I have no idea. And this is crazy because it's not like he just hit the limelight. I mean, Zion was 1 million followers in as a high school kid. If the NIL deals had been around back when Zion was coming through, He could have signed $1 million deals in high school. That is how big his reach was in the prep world. He could have signed $1 million deals in high school, but you know the rest. So now with him missing and these injuries that have had him out the entire year, and now all of a sudden these guys, he's coming back. I don't know what to make of Zion. I don't know what this motivation is. I'll just tell you this for both guys. If I was the coach, they could stay home. Like, New Orleans might be feeling like, oh my gosh, we've got Phoenix on the ropes. They're down a player. They look vulnerable. We were able to steal one in Phoenix. If we get Zion back, ... But Zion messes up the chemistry. Zion messes up the chemistry. And this time of year, chemistry matters. Look at the Nets. They're still trying to work out their chemistry. Start off fast, guns blazing. Then the Celtics make an adjustment. They don't make adjustments. They just keep trying to do the stuff that they were successful with at the beginning, and they're no longer successful with it. And they're two stars. Neither one of them played to a level of a star. So now they're going to add Ben Simmons to do what? Like, what's Ben Simmons bringing? Is he going to bring the ability to D up like Jason Tatum? Like, is that what he's going to bring? Is he going to be somebody who can be relied upon to make a bucket because they're sagging off of him to help with KD and to help with Kyrie? We know that he can attack the basket, but if the basket's not there for him to attack, what else can he bring to the table offensively? Is his value as a defender going to be infinitely better than his value as an offensive player? And therefore, we must put him in. We must bring him in. If that's the case, okay, sign me up for it, right? If that's the case, then I'll take it. If that's the case, then, hey, you know what? But do I really want him and everything that comes with him in this locker room, on that bench, on that court? Because we know if it doesn't go well, the fingers will start pointing. Unfortunately, the Nets have some finger pointers on them. Outside of KD, who doesn't really have to point the finger, but could, we have some finger pointers out there. And now we're about to add one of the biggest finger pointers, one of the biggest, like, unearned prima donnas in the entire NBA to a roster with a couple prima donnas on them already? Nah. To me, if you guys are healthy, we'll see you in the fall. We'll see you in the fall. You know what? You're healthy now, cool. Get real healthy in the offseason. Get super healthy in the offseason. And we'll run this back again next year. We'll take our chances next year. I'm not adding these guys to teams, and then if there's success, people like somehow think everything's okay when I know everything's not okay. Is Zion trying to work his way out of New Orleans, a city that has only showed him love since he touched down? a team that has done everything they can to surround him with a team that can be playoff caliber and possibly championship caliber, but he wants out? Do I really want those Ben Simmons problems? It's bad enough we got to pay him all this money to do nothing. Nah, I'm good. I'm good. But I understand that the Nets and the Pelicans, they have tough decisions to make because those are talents and they could possibly help you. But is it worth it? That's what you've got to ask yourself, and that's what they have to ask themselves. Is it worth it? And if it doesn't get the job done, don't blame them. Don't make them the easy scapegoats. You know what I also think I look at sports and I say, man, there are a lot of sports shows out there. There are a lot of shows that focus on sports. And so I've been blessed enough that I have a love for many sports. I have a love for football and basketball and baseball and track and soccer but there are sports that I would not feel comfortable putting together a regular show on. Why? Because I don't love them, right? Like I like them. They're enjoyable, but I don't love them. And so when I look at some of these shows that are out there, those shows that are out there covering sports that I love, and I see them talking about things that don't have anything to do with the sport, things that don't have anything to do with the people who are in the sport, things that don't even have anything to do with sports. I wonder, is the reason that they put this stuff into their programming because they can't figure out what to talk about because they don't really love the sport? See, I believe there are two types of people who do sports shows. There are people who really and truly love sports. And then there are people who really and truly love the avenues and the things that sports have opened up for them. I think there are a lot of people who like sports. I think there are a lot of people who are good with sports. They're cool with sports. But there are not a lot of them that love the sport enough that day in and day out they can walk into a studio, they can open up a podcast mic, and they can talk about that sport and something within that sport. And people say it's a talent, but I don't think it's a talent. I think it's a love, right? Because if you can talk about what's the best mac and cheese recipe for 15 minutes, then you can talk about sports for 15 minutes. But if you don't love the sport like you love mac and cheese, then it's going to be hard to talk. It's going to be hard to say things. That's the difference. I look at some of these shows. I look at clips from podcasts that some people put out. And I go, where's the sports? Where's the sports tie-in? Like, you could talk about mac and cheese, but if it's a football show and you're talking about the best mac and cheese recipes, where's the tie-in that brings it back to sports? That's what the people who are in love with football can do. If you're talking about basketball and you're talking about mac and cheese, where's the tie-in that brings it back to basketball? Because that's what the people who love basketball can do. Those people who love basketball, they can tie that in. they can make that a part of the story. The people who don't love the sport, they struggle. And so they believe, right? They believe that just because they don't love the sport, that other people, their audience, wants to hear the other stuff that they want to talk about that don't have anything to do with the sport. See, that's where the problem persists at, right? That's where we have the issues. Is because if you are covering a subject in the media that you don't love, you find yourself wanting to talk about other things. You find yourself wanting to discuss other things because, oh my gosh, our audience can't possibly want to hear us talk about basketball for this entire podcast. But if you're a basketball pod, what do you think the people are tuning in for? If you're an MMA podcast, what do you think the people are tuning into your podcast to do? They don't want to hear you talk about the best chicken sandwich recipe. They don't want to hear you talk about your favorite movie unless it has something or some type of tie-in to the sport. And guess what? It's not even difficult to do. That's not even difficult to do. It's not difficult to tie something into your avenue. Talk Spicy is Talk Spicy, right? There's no designation of sport here. What is it designated about? Sometimes I'm going to say something that other people are not going to like. That's what Talk Spicy means. So I can talk about whatever I want. But I have a podcast that mainly surrounds basketball. Zebra Stripes podcast. Guess what we talk about? Basketball. That's it. Even if we tell a fun little side story, the side story normally has some tie-in to sports. But on the Zebra Stripes podcast, we primarily talk about basketball. And if we get away from talking about basketball, you know what we hear from our audience? Hey, man, y'all need to get back. We need to hear a little bit more basketball. Okay. A million football shows, football podcast shows that primarily stand in the football realm. And I'll turn on the television, or I'll turn on the computer and listen, or I'll open up the podcast on my phone and listen. And in the time leading up to one of the most crucial times of the NFL draft, I don't hear people talking about the 1,000+ players that are out there to talk about in this draft. You know what I hear? Either I hear the discussions about the same 5 to 10 players, or I hear discussions that have nothing to do with the draft. Somebody make it make sense. If you love football, then the NFL draft is a beautiful time. Why? Because it gives you the opportunity to not only bring the NFL stories in, but it gives you an opportunity to bring the college stories in. You people love human interest so much, right? Well, what better time is there to write human interest stories than the draft? Right? What better time is it to get an opportunity to write a human interest story than the NFL draft, where all we want to do is know more about these people that our teams may draft? You don't even take the opportunity to talk more about those stories every single day. But when you don't love the sport that you cover, it's hard to find storylines. I hear it all the time. Man, this is a tough news cycle. It's only a tough news cycle if you don't love the sport. If you love the sport that you're covering, then it's not a tough news cycle. If you love the sport that you're covering, then you have ample amounts of things in the pocket that you've been wanting to talk about, that you were waiting for the space to talk about. That's it. Period. End. And if you're not doing that, then most likely you don't give a damn about the sport. You love what the sport affords you, but you don't love the sport. And ladies and gentlemen, I would love to get back to those who love the sports. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk spicy. I'm Coach Gene Clemens. We do this thing a few times a week. Rate the show, comment, agree, disagree, but whatever you do, keep it spicy. 5-star ratings are appreciated. If you're joining me on the YouTube channel, right there, 3,000 subs. We are heading towards it. I need you guys to help me out. Make sure that you subscribe. YouTube, Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Gene Clemens, on Instagram at Gene Clemens, everywhere at Gene Clemens. Until next time, peace.